What is up, you guys? Welcome to your 41st tutorial of programming in C. And in this tutorial, as I said, I'll be talking about breaks. Okay, now I talked about breaks in the switch statements also, but I wanted to make this tutorial just to make it more clear. And in this tutorial, we actually are going to use breaks inside a loop. Okay, so let's first of all make a simple program to find the average of all the user input in numbers. Okay, so for that, of course, we need some variables. N will be the number of inputs, I will be for the loop, and A will be actually the number that user inputs. Okay, and we actually need a sum variable to store the sum, and we can find the average after finding the sum, right? So we initialize this to 0 because we always initialize the sum variable to 0. And we actually need a variable to store the average of all the numbers, but this average variable, it can or cannot be an integer type. So but definitely it will be a float type. So let's make it float type, and let's name this avg because avg sounds cool. Okay, print f, printf. So let's first of all print a statement for our users to say enter the number of inputs. Okay, and let's go on a new line after this. So scanf, and we store this in n, so and percent n. So now that we know how many inputs are we going to get, we can start running our loop. I'll be using a for loop. You can use while or do while or anything. Okay, actually not anything. You can use for, while, or do while, not anything. Okay, let's initialize I to 1, and we actually want to run this loop n times, so I is less than or equal to n. Okay, and I plus plus. There you go. Okay, so let's add a printf here, and enter a number and a space. Okay, and then we store it in a. So scanf b and a. There you go. So now what we can actually do is that we can find the sum of all these numbers in this loop itself as soon as the user inputs the number. So to do this, we just add sum is equals to sum plus a. There you go. Okay, so now that we have the sum of all the inputs, we can go out of the loop and find the average in this simple equation, sum divided by n, because n is the number of inputs. There you go. And we just add a printf to print the average. So the average is percent d. Now average is a float type, so percent f. Okay, and we print out average. Now before talking about breaks and all, let's run this simple program, and I actually want to talk to you about something, so let's run this. Enter the numbers of inputs. So I'll just input two numbers and show you what we're actually going to do here. So 4 and 5. Now what it shows is that the average is 4, but we definitely know that average is not 4, but the average should be 4.5. Okay, so why is this not showing that 4.5? Is because of this line right here. Now what this line does is that sum and n are both integer type, right? So when it does the calculation, it returns an integer value in here. Okay, in that case it returns 4, and then average is like, okay, now I got 4, but I am a float type, so I'll just add zeros after it, so it goes like 4.00. That's the reason. To overcome this problem, we need to make this calculation a float type for just the time being. Okay, just for temporarily purpose, we just make it float by adding these parentheses and writing float inside it. Okay, so now what will happen is that it will convert into a float value, and it will store in the average, which is again a float, so it won't change. Okay, actually let's run this code again and see how it works. Two inputs for now, 4 5, same values, so now it gives us 4.5, this lovely value we wanted. Okay, one more thing about float is that float gives us 6 digits after the decimal point, right? But what if we want just 3 digits after the decimal point? We can do this by coming here, okay? When we print out the float value, we actually go between these percentage sign and the F, and we type something like point 0.3. What this means is that after the point, I just want 3 digits, okay? So actually, let's run this again and let me show you. 3 inputs this time, 4, 2, and 7. Okay, so there you see, now you're only getting 3 digits after the decimal point. Okay, you can put anything like point 0.2 and point 0.1 or anything like that. Okay, till 6, because float is a 6 digits after decimal point. Okay, let's actually come to breaks now. Okay, so I'm so sorry I didn't talk about breaks in this tutorial and I was talking about all this stuff. But seriously, let's come to breaks now. Now, what we actually want to do is that when user is entering all these numbers, by chance, if user enters a negative number here, we just want to quit this loop. We want to stop taking the inputs from the user and we just want to print out the average of all the digits that has been inputted till now except that negative value. Okay, so as soon as the user inputs the value, we want to check if the value is negative or not, and to do that we do it like a is less than 0, and if this is true, now, by default, one line is given for if, okay? So we don't really want those curly brackets, okay? And if this is true, if the value is actually negative, we want to break. So we add a break here, okay? And you see, break has been added before the sum line, okay? So the negative value won't really affect the sum. It won't get added inside the sum because we break it before adding it to the sum, okay? And then we calculate the average and then we print it. And one more thing is that we cannot really write n here now because there may or may not be n value, n number of inputs, because our loop may stop running just in the middle like that. Okay, so to overcome this problem, instead of n we write I, but even for I we have some drawbacks, so we write I minus 1. Now why this minus 1 is because we don't really count that negative value too, okay? So just to discard that negative value, the count of that negative value, we write I minus 1, okay? So I will be the number of times the loop actually ran, and then we subtract 1 because we don't want to count that negative value as well. Okay, so now our program is ready. Let's run this and I'll show you how it works. So let's input 5 numbers, 5, 6, 87, and let's input a negative number this time. There you see, it stopped running the loop. Okay, even though I gave 5 numbers, it just stopped running after 4 digits, I mean after 4 values, because this was negative and it just showed us the average. And if you notice, it just shows us the 3 digits after the decimal point because we kept this point 3. Okay, so that's how break works to come out of the loop, and we can give some condition and it just comes out of the loop. It works the same with the while and the do while loop. Okay, that's all about breaks. And one more thing, this thing right here, converting integer values into float for just temporary purpose, is called typecasting. All right, I should have told this to you before, but anyways, there you go. Okay, in the next tutorial I'll be talking about a new library in here, and it is called math. Okay, it's gonna be kind of interesting, so don't miss it. And thanks for watching, and we meet in the next video.